everyone, this is the Juice Mama, and today I'm going to share with you how I made my trip to Cuba. To travel to Cuba, it's not necessarily legal at this point unless you have a specific purpose. There's different purposes such as people to people, educational, journalism, research. So these are things that you're going to want to make yourself aware of before you go. If you're traveling to Cuba and you don't have a license to travel there, which I did not obtain a license before going, you're going to want to have one of these reasons as to why you are traveling to Cuba. What I would say is first determine how you want to get there. If you want to obtain a license, that is totally up to you. What I did is that I flew into Cancun, which is another route that people take. And from Cancun, I flew on Cubana Airlines to Cuba. I paid for my flight on Cubana Airlines in advance and then flew into Cancun, stayed the night, and then the next day flew out, which you will need a visa for traveling to Cuba. You can purchase your visa at the airport. You can walk over to Terminal 2. There will be a man and he will be sitting in a wheelchair, and this man, you pay him $30 and you obtain your Cuban visa. It's that simple. He takes your money, he writes it out, that's it, you're good to go. You can do that the day before you leave, or you can do that on the day of your travels. It's totally up to you. So when you're leaving to Cuba, you're going to have to pay an exit tax, so make sure that you bring cash, USD, to be able to pay your exit tax upon your departure from Cancun to Cuba. When it comes to exchanging money in Cuba, the exchange rate for USD to CUC is a very poor rate. US credit cards are not accepted in Cuba. So what I did was I took out euros, I exchanged USD to euros in the States at my bank prior to leaving to Cuba. Euros are accepted in Cuba, but also you can exchange them for CUC, and you can get a pretty decent rate on your euros. Whatever you do, go into a bank in Cuba and exchange your money at the bank. You're going to probably get the most decent rate at the bank versus the hotel. As far as places to stay, you can stay at a hotel. Like I said, you know, everything is your own preference, right? What I did is I stayed at a casa particular. There's different ways to register for a casa particular, but you can do it on Airbnb, you can do it, I think, Hostel World or something like that. What I did is I went on to Airbnb and I signed up for a stay in someone's home. The option is yours, and whatever it is that you choose to do. I had a great experience. Read the reviews. Make sure you're reading the reviews and that you're comfortable. You know that you're going to be comfortable with where you're staying at. If it's just not an option for you and you're very particular about what you want and where you stay, then I would suggest staying in a hotel. There's wonderful, beautiful hotels there that you can stay at. So you're going to be completely disconnected from the US, from the outside world. Sure, you can pay at a hotel to utilize their Wi-Fi services. I managed to obtain Wi-Fi from a guy on the street for one CUC, and you know, I had it for an hour. So there's different ways to obtain Wi-Fi, but it's not something that is readily available like it would be in the States. So that's something to take into consideration, because it does feel like a huge disconnect in being there. While you're in Cuba, I would suggest traveling as much of the island as you can. You know, if you can rent a car for part of your stay, I would highly recommend that, but they also have coach buses that leave from the hotels to Vinales and Varadero. Those places that I mentioned are about a couple hours or so out of Havana. So It's totally up to you how you want to do it, but I highly recommend getting out of Havana and seeing more of Cuba. Something to be weary of is that there are a lot of hustlers, people who want you to buy something, especially cigars. There's prostitutes, there's male prostitutes, there's female prostitutes. So prostitution there is just insane, and at night, that's when things sort of become very seedy and a bit questionable. So just, you know, it depends on your comfort level with those things, but just be aware, even as a man, if you're in a club or something like that, for the most part, the women in the club, unless they're tourists, they're working girls. Crime is you know, there might be some pickpocketers and whatnot, but it's actually, Cuba is the safest country in Latin America. So you know, you always have to be on guard, and you always have to be aware of your surroundings, but it's a very safe country. When you arrive to Cuba, do not let them stamp your passport. Now, they usually don't. They will usually stamp your visa. But my friend that I travel with, they stamped his passport. Now, when he returned to the US, they didn't see it. He got really lucky. However, if you're traveling to Cuba without a license, if you have a stamp on your passport and they see it when you return, you could be in big trouble. You could face jail time, and you could face high fines. So that's something that you're going to want to research. Do not let them stamp your passport. Just be aware of that. And when you arrive, they're going to stamp your visa, and when you leave, they're going to stamp that visa, and they're going to take that. And then when you return to Cancun, they will stamp your passport on another page. So just in case when you return to the US and they're looking through, they will not see two different arrivals into Cancun days apart from each other without seeing that you exited and then returned, right? If that makes sense. So just be aware, you do not want a Cuban stamp on your passport. I know that might be something that, you know, a lot of people want. They want to have stamps, but trust me, you do not want a Cuban stamp on your passport. Cuba may or may not require you to purchase their insurance. You can purchase it at the airport when you arrive. At the time that we arrived, it was not required. However, there have been times where stories of people who, when they did go to Cuba, it was required for them to purchase insurance. So it is totally up to you. That's what you want to do. You want to play it safe, purchase insurance, and you can go to any doctors or, you know, anything while you're there in the country. If you have any questions and something that I didn't answer here, please let me know. I tried to touch all bases, but that is how I traveled to Cuba. That was my experience, and good luck on your travel.